Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Santilli. I'm the CEO for SCIP organization, the Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals intelligence-based organization, one of the world's largest and most comprehensive intelligence thought leadership organizations out there. And I'm pleased to have Joby Jacob here from NetBase Quid, who's going to be chairing and presenting during this webinar on 3 ways to enrich your competitive intelligence strategy. Personally, I think this is a very important presentation because it really focuses a lot on practitioner value. It focuses on utilizing tools out there that can help organizations realize intelligence from the competitive and market environment that they're operating in. And I think that and seeing the presentation content, obviously prior to this webinar, there's a lot of great things that I hope the audience will take away as truly being content that they can apply within their business environment. So with that, Joby, I'd like to ask you to take the floor, introduce yourself, and then you could start your presentation. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. My name is Joby Jacob. I'm an onboarding strategist at the customer success department of NetBase Quid. So we use the advanced artificial intelligence to process billions of indexed resources across all forms of structured or unstructured data, and of course, empowering the brands, agency, and consulting services, customers to make smart and data-driven decisions accurately or quickly and efficiently. And we are a trusted partner for many of the Fortune 500 companies, and we work with the executives from forward-looking agencies and leading brands across all verticals in over 100 countries. So today, I'll be able to cover 3 ways to enrich your competitive intelligence strategy, and then I will go through each of them, and then I'm sure that this will help you when you are doing some of your analysis in the future and to do your daily job for the same. Let me quickly share my screen for a moment. And so this is what we wanted to, I wanted to cover today. So we all know that analyzing the competitive landscape of an industry has multiple facets, from benchmarking your brand share of voice against the competitors to identifying the market trends to predict the next big shift. But while you do your best to stay focused on top of how your market is evolving, and then there will be times when a competitor makes an unexpected move that shifts the trajectory of your entire industry. And whether it's a product launch or a brand pivot, you'll need to be prepared with the data. You need to know when to sit back and then watch things to play out or reactively respond to ensure that you are keeping up with the demands of the market. So I'll be covering mainly 3 things. One thing is to discover the new competitors coming up in your industry, and then use AI to understand your brands, the competitors' strengths and weaknesses. I will give you a couple of examples over here, and then understand the category trends to stay ahead of the curve. And definitely today, I'll be focusing on the industry like a wearable device. I think that is one of the hot industry that is currently in, and then wearable tech industry specifically. And as you know, all those big companies, and then most of the Fortune companies who are there in the tech, I think they have already started working through many of those wearable devices. And then, so that will be an interesting industry to focus today. And that I'm sure that will be helpful for you. And as you work through, right, and then you might be noticed couple of difficulties, right? I think what are all the difficulties when you are doing some of those competitive analysis, right? And then, so what are the costs associated with all these things, right? And then you are falling behind the competitors, jumping on trends, and then of course the executives failing to grasp the importance of the insights, and then you are showing an inaccurate insight to the executives. So, and losing the credibility with the stakeholders and the customers, and then being considered out of touch or not innovative or uninformed or inaccurate. So in that case, for sure, right, I think we will be completely out from the situation. And then an organization not aligned on the consumer or the market dynamics. I think these are all the big costs associated with any of those worries or any of those difficulties that you are facing when you are doing some of the competitive analysis. And so Probably some of you might be familiar with this approach, but at the same time, if not, and then definitely this should be the competitive intelligence approach that we need to follow. So it should be a continuous intelligence approach. I mean, not just, I mean, you are doing the competitive analysis and then you are just doing that when you have done it. And then after that, okay, let's move on. So it's not like that, right? So you just need to discover that, I think, what you really need, and then you need to continuously monitor that. And then this discovery process should be a continuous process, and the monitoring is the way to stay constantly informed. And then that's where you should be focusing on the data, and then especially when it comes to the real-time data, and then when you are looking for some of those competitive analysis, and then that should be where you will be focusing.
Hey, Joby, I got a quick question for you on that. This process on the discover monitoring, I think this is obviously a very, very critical element, especially with the environment we have today in today's what I call perpetual disruption that's continuously going on worldwide, globally, right? Pandemic obviously being a global disruption, but things as simple as your delivery truck getting a flat tire is a disruption to your business, you know, depending on how big it is, of course. So the monitoring of this is really a challenge, because it essentially what traditional CI modeling has done in the past is to look historically at something, take time to create it, and then come to a conclusion that may or may not represent the way the world is today. And I think the big challenge here is that this discovery and monitoring and feeding it back into the discovering process, as you're showing here, almost has to be done real time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this sort of thing?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's where the social data that is coming in the picture, and then that's where you'll be able to, for example, like, I mean, you're getting a tweet, and then you're working with the customer, and then you're seeing that, okay, there is a problem, there's an issue that is happening. I mean, that was not an issue for the last several months, and then all of a sudden it started rising, I mean, from last week, and then all of a sudden it is happening. And you will be able to know that upfront if you are doing the social listening for the same. So that's why, I mean, we are saying that when you should be doing this monitoring as a continuous process, and then you should be focusing on your brand or maybe the competitor or even within the category. And then you should be monitoring all the time, and especially using the social data. So when it comes to the social data, or if there is any real disruption happening, right? And then you'll be able to see that one. That is the first hit is with the most of the social media platforms, right? And then you will be able to see that most of the customers already started talking about that, and then all of a sudden that is coming up, I mean, like a spike, and then you'll be able to monitor that. And there are a lot more modern platforms nowadays, I think, even that can generate even the alarms or maybe some of the spikes. I mean, they will say that, oh, okay, there is a problem, or there are more conversation, more engagements happening for this specific topic or maybe this specific keyword, and then you'll be able to identify that very quickly. So it's not a big deal, I mean, in the current tech industry, I would say.
Very good, thank you.
Right, so as I mentioned, right, so we should be having the accurate data, I think, all the time. And then what would be your single source of truth, right? And then that should be, as I mentioned, I mean, definitely the social media is one of the things, especially if you are looking for the consumer intelligence, and then there are blogs and forums, and then of course the feedback that is coming from SurveyMonkey or Glassdoor, those kind of websites, and then you'll be able to pull that one in real time, and then you will be able to see that one. And similar way, if you're looking into the market intelligence, and then you will be able to collect the data from some of the global news and media, I mean, which is having much more truth records, and then business data that is coming from the companies or the patents or the earning calls, and all those things, we will be able to collect that one. In addition to that, if you wanted to bring your own data, I mean, that is also still doable. I mean, for example, your brand, if you just wanted to pull the records that is there on a marketplace like Amazon, I mean, for your brand, I mean, you can bring those data, I mean, that is available only for your company. In some cases, you can bring those data, and then you can put all these as part of your single source of truth, and then from there, you will be able to capture all those insights that you really wanted to do that. So in this case, as you can see here, right, the social media is there, and then if you wanted to have any of those real time, and you can do that pretty easily.
So Joby, in this single source of truth aspect, and this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I've done a lot of research about the versions of truth out there, right? It all depends on the narrative that you're trying to play, and unfortunately, data can be made reflective of any sort of factual truth, so to speak, that you'd like. But regardless of that, what do you think are some of the challenges around gathering, real credible insights? Because as you know, there's a lot of noise out there. So what do you have? Any comments about best practices, maybe around credible information collection and analytics?
So with many of these modern technologies, and then we will be able to figure it out, most of those things. And then especially once you segregate that data and then collect it together, right? Even if there are noises, and then that will be negligible in many cases, right? I think, for example, somebody is trying to, or maybe some of the groups even trying to put a problem or for a brand or anything specific as such, right? I think that can be negligible if you are really collecting the entire data. And then, so in that case, you'll be seeing that one, okay, vast majority of the data is coming. And then if you are seeing that one, for example, if there is a boycott campaign going on for one of your brands, right? And then if that is for a small segment, and then you can definitely put a benchmark, right? I think what is happening for a long time, I think what is your benchmark, and then probably the engagements that is happening for such boycott conversation, or maybe the more comments or more tweets that is happening for that. And then you can look into that, and then that way, if you put a benchmark, and definitely you will be able to identify that, whether that's a trusted one, or maybe looking into the details of that, and then we will be able to identify that particularly.
Yeah. So one of the things I try to employ is that data is data, and even bad data is data that you should take into consideration. But there's a thing that I like to try to employ is more of a triangulation of the data points, right? I mean, because one single sources of data is many times somewhat unreliable. So you got to be cautious in that context, I think. So I think what you're getting at here in terms of many different sources, vetting these sources, the reputation of the sources and so forth, especially in today's world where everything's about fake news, right? It brings much more demanding challenges, I think, to the data professional in this context. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And in this context, what should you be looking for, right? I think you should protect against the missed consumer or the market signals, right? And then most of the data-driven strategies, I think that should be like that. And then improve the agility in your research workflows, and then accelerate your decision making. And then, of course, you need to drive the executive support. I think that's where most of the decisions are coming from, and then that's where you require, their support if you just wanted to protect your brand, I think, from some of those competitive intelligence. And then this will definitely help you get there, right? And so I'll be covering a couple of things, as an example over here. And then, of course, the competitive intelligence that is to uncover where the competitors are focusing, and then how they are performing. And then this will be one of the other great use cases where you'll be able to identify the new technology trends and the hotspot emerging within any specific industry, right? So I have used one of our tools to discover the new competitors in the industry. So in this case, I have looked into the wearable tech industry for such. And then my criteria was to companies with the description of the keyword related to wearable technology industry, and then private companies that is founded in the last 4 years, which has received at least $1 million as the private investment. And so this one is definitely the company data set. And then there are a variety of ways to filter the data once a query has been run, right? And then you can look into the amount of funding, and then the date range, or maybe the type of investment, or maybe the total private funding. Of course, you'll be able to identify the investors or acquirers or exit type. Those kind of things, you'll be able to figure it out. And this one is definitely the unsupervised, unbiased clustering or the mapping based on the semantic similarities. This is done by the AI entity detection and metadata, right? And then So this one came out like for the wearable tech industry, and then company network with the 45 companies, and then each node represents each company, and then colored by the clusters. And then these are all the segments that came out with these companies for the wearable tech industry. As you can see here on the right-hand side, there are top 22% that comes with the medical and the therapeutics or respiratory systems, and then that is where most of the companies are there. And then of course the second one is the smart audio glasses, as well as the continuous glucose monitoring, and then there are devices for the visually impaired devices. And then in addition to that, you'll be able to see that there is a 20% concentration and the vision. So this one was pretty interesting, right? I think there are more wearable devices, I think that is coming, or more companies that is focusing on to put wearable devices that will be focusing on your concentration, your focus, and then analyzing the data using definitely there are multiple metrics, right? And then so if you're pulling such data, and then you'll be able to figure it out, I think, which segments are the largest within your area of interest, or which segments are most closely related to one another, right? And then, or maybe whatever there in the central, right? And then, so that will be considered as, that will be the most relevant one, I mean, for this entire conversation. And then that is related to multiple companies. So that's how this network is getting formed. And some of those.
So Joey, real quick comment here. This is an interesting part here, because I think one of the challenges is what we call the incubation areas for new competitors that start up, or more from the innovation and entrepreneurial aspect, where people or organizations are trying to use the proliferation of data to help them generate opportunities for innovation and startups, and having a dashboard that allows you to see this sort of competitive ecosystem from established organizations all the way to these incubation startup organizations, I think is very valuable, especially when you're trying to decipher a course of action that's further than your next quarter in your business, right? So, so this sort of segmentation and visibility into the up and comers is I think is an incredible component, or a very important component to the data modeling.
Yeah. And this one was, I think, based on my experience, right? So there are a lot more companies, or some of the large enterprise companies, I mean, they were able to figure it out. I think, where do they need to do the next purchase? I mean, basically, when they wanted to do that next acquisition, even if their R&D is working on certain things, right? And then they will be able to identify that, I think, where do they really need to go for next? And then especially with the acquisition, right? And then that is a real useful thing for many of the executives.
Very good.
And there are, I think, some of those companies, I think that came under the green thing. I think that is on the concentration side. So one of those companies, the Neurocity, that they developed the Crown, which increases the productivity by boosting the brain's concentration. And then it offers the thought-powered wearable devices to communicate and understand the thought, feelings, and movements. And it provides the brain-computer interfaces and the neuro-powered application. Of course, this company was incorporated in 2018, and then they are based out of Brooklyn. And another company was Grace Imaging, as you can see here. And then, so they are also developing the sensors and then measuring the devices for fatigue analysis and evaluation. And then they offers sweat lactic acid measurements and wearable devices that can measure the lactic acid concentration in sweat. And that is all pretty interesting, right? And they are based out of Tokyo, Japan. And another company is the Nextile. I mean, they are the manufacturers of fabric-based wearables that provides physiological measurements for consumers and athletes. And then they offer biomechanical and biometric data using some of their patented sewing technology. So these are all interested companies. I think that is coming in the wearable tech industry. And I will show you a couple of other examples as well. And definitely this network is getting changed. That then this one will be showing the investment received amount. As you can see here, this one is colored based on the investment received amount. This one is from 1 million to 61 million. So So this is color coded, and as you can see here, Union Optech is one of the companies. They are mainly into healthcare related software, and then you will be able to see that they have received much more investment over here. And there are other companies like Happy Health. They are manufacturing the wearable devices that again captures the health and fitness data, and they offers again a product called Happy Ring, I mean, which is a wearable device, and then that measure the stress, mood, and sleep in real time, and then paired with the sensor-driven insights, and then exercises along with the adaptive AI. So that is pretty interesting. I mean, these are all the new companies that came in the last 4 years. I mean, they have incorporated in 2019. And another company
what this is allowing you to do is to not only segment the type of new competitors in your industry on the prior slide, but also segment it by the dollar volume and the size or the potential opportunity revenue aspect. So you can then target which ones might be most opportunistic from your competitive standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will show you another interesting slide. I think that will be along with definitely the investment amount versus the revenue target. I think what they are doing now. So that is another real interesting slide. So before that, I think there's another company called Movano. I mean, they are also engaging in the developing a platform to deliver the healthcare solutions, and then medtech, and then consumer devices. So these are all companies, as you can see here, right? And then they have received much better investment, I mean, compared to other companies. And then you'll be able to looking into the details of those companies to see that I think at least they are doing something really great, right? And so this is where you'll be able to leverage this bar chart view to understand who are the real key players in the space in terms of investment and revenue, right? So this one is the company bar chart with the top 10 companies, of course, colored by the investment received amount but estimated yearly revenue. As you can see here, Clingens, I think they are in the top, and then of course, I mean, they are based on the software company, and then there is another one is BioIntelligence. Of course, they have received much better investment amount, as you can see here, and even for the Happy Health, I think they have also received a much better investment amount. But at the same time, if you are looking into that BioIntelligence, I think they provide the healthcare devices and the data services platform for the continuous remote health monitoring and predictive analysis, even algorithmic clinical insights. So they offer a bio button system and a wearable medical grade screening solution that support the safe return to work, and then something called BioSticker. I think these are all the data as a service platform kind of thing. I think that is they are using for the wearable medical devices. So they're all getting better revenue, as well as they are getting better investment received so far. And another company, if you look in here, right, I think they are doing from a revenue perspective, they are doing better. I mean, they are yet to receive some higher investment amount, but with the current investment amount, I mean, if you are looking into their currently generated revenue, I mean, for example, like Enrich, right? They design and develop the app that provides the audio-based tools to track the mental and physical health. So these are all the companies that is coming in this space, right? I think this company, what I mentioned, Enrich, they just incorporated in 2021. I mean, they are based out of San Francisco, California. So you'll be able to identify using those competitive analysis, and then if you are doing this one on a continuous basis, if you are doing this continuous market intelligence, and for sure, right, I think you'll be able to identify more and more companies, or where are they, right? I mean, day after day or quarter after quarter, you'll be able to identify that one. This space is getting changed, or what is happening with each of those companies, and then you'll be able to make the business decision based on that.
So Joby, as you know, as we go through this slide deck, there's a lot of great ideas and tools and methods and methodologies and so forth that we can extract from this. How do we apply this really to achieve what I think virtually every practitioner wants to look at, that business outcome? That's an absolute critical component of your intelligence value chain. I mean, how do you see this being used to achieve that sort of realization, that sort of outcome?
So when you're doing an analysis with the companies in an emerging space, I mean, you can quickly segment the complex company landscape for an emerging space, right? And then that way, the moment when you identify this one, and in case if you just wanted to use this data to mainly for in case if you just wanted to pull some of those companies under your umbrella, and then if you just wanted your company is looking for further investment in the same space, and then you can do that one. I mean, using this data, right? And then in case if you think that your competitors, you already have the product, I mean, you are working in the same industry, and then you will be able to see that how your competitors are growing, and then diversifying their portfolio. I'm sure that, I mean, this will help you to understand this one upfront, and then that will help you to definitely do much more better decisions to run far better than some of these competitors. And of course, if you are looking for, as I mentioned, right, I think if you are looking for to tag some of those investment or maybe for the acquisition for your company, or it's any of those subsidiaries to get a full picture of the umbrella company strategy, right? And then you'll be able to make use of this data for the same.
Thank you.
And another way is, I think, with the one of the thing, I think when we have done those segments, I think you'll be able to scout the technologies that is used with the using this company's data set, right? I think these are all the segments that is coming. Even if you are there in the wearable industry, you'll be able to see that those are all the new emerging segments that is coming out from that industry, and then that will definitely helpful for you.
Yeah, it's the extraction of the content that really aligns to your business model, and what impacts can be assessed from that, and how it might change the trajectory of your business strategy. So I think it's great to get this sort of content, and again, being able to apply it toward hopefully a business outcome that improves your positioning within the competitive and market landscape.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is where the cluster maturity versus the investment, right? I mean, this is another representation for the company scatter plot aggregated into six clusters, right? And of course, this one is colored by the cluster name, labeled by the cluster name. And you can leverage this scatter plot to better understand the relative maturity and investment within each market sector, right? And then for each of those things, you'll be able to see that, and which segments of the market are most established, and then which segments are most nascent, and or which segments appear to be the breakouts, right? High investment and then relatively new. So you'll be able to figure it out. I mean, using this kind of graphical representation where the founding year is there on the x-axis, and then you'll be able to see that one. I think in this case, the smart audio glasses, or the continuous glucose monitoring, or the visually impaired devices. I mean, this one is getting much more investment. I mean, more on earlier days, and then, but there are some of those things, right? As I mentioned, the concentration and vision. This one came out, and then this one is still getting better investments, and then some of those things definitely there in the medical segment, and then that is getting much better investment, and but they are here for just for such a short time period, right? So you'll be able to figure it out. I mean, all those things, I mean, using this one, and you can utilize these insights with your overall business where it has a larger business impact, right? And then you can keep an eye on your new competitors, and you can even define your, as I mentioned, right? You can even define your acquisition strategies based on this. I'm just moving into the next part of the session, and then this is where you'll be identifying the strengths or the weaknesses of your brand, or maybe your competitor brand, and definitely, right? And then before I'm showing some of those examples, I'm just showing you this one to see that, I mean, the data points are being heavily scrutinized. And then as you can see here, right, again, this one is just a 140 character social post, right? And then from that, most of our latest or advanced AI that will understand all the attributes of the conversation, like behavior or emotions, and faced with the millions of consumer conversation every day, right? And then instead of wasting time to put through the noise to find the relevant insight, it's very difficult, right? And then with using our next generation AI, that takes you to the right answer quickly. I mean, without the need for the complex queries or maybe the manual data cleaning or maybe the painstaking analysis, right? You will be able to get that. I mean, using the modern technology and then using the latest tools, and then you will be able to get all those things with a couple of clicks. And then, of course, the advanced AI understands all these attributes, right? And once you identify a brand or a competitor or a category, you'd like to drill into the deeper. I mean, you can use these kind of monitoring solutions, and then you can track this consumer conversation by a keyword or their channel, or maybe filtering out the noise to ensure the accuracy. And then in addition to that, you can simply tracking the general conversation. And then most of the latest AI and the NLP analyzes and break down each sentence of every conversation to identify these attributes. So you can seamlessly pivot between the discovery and monitoring solutions to repeat this process in identifying the act of your unmet needs.
So Joey, that's an important slide, because I think the social content, especially around structured and unstructured, has to be part of the intelligence modeling. And having some AI behind this to do Boolean searches or keyword aspects related to, as you have here, emotions, behaviors, brand, etc., I think is an integral part of making sure that you can extract this content almost real time, right? I mean, that's a very valuable component of getting that information for your modeling. Just as a FYI to everybody, I've been seeing some questions come across. I'm going to table the questions until the end of the presentation, if you guys don't mind, and then we'll get through all the questions. So we'll leave some time at the end to make sure we cover that. Okay, just to let the audience know.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for that. And so this one is one of the model, or maybe an example that I just pulled here. And then this is definitely for the brand Fitbit. And then this is used using the AI, right? And then we pull the data, and then this is a couple of clicks, and then after that, this word cloud is getting generated. And then with the modern tools, and then for sure you will be able to click any of those things to understand that, right? And then this one is the top behavior we have identified from the data that is available from social media, as well as the forums and reviews for Fitbit as a brand. And then, so as you can see here, there are top behaviors. Of course, from a positive side, I think there are people liking to wear and then use it, they are buying. But there are behaviors that is mentioning as not wear and not buy. So if you look into this particular behavior, if you look into the emotions or the attributes behind each of them, that will give you the idea that I think where this one is coming from, right? And this one was pretty easy to derive from the social media, and then the AI is capable to understand this one, and then you can even segment this one further to a specific time frame or even for a geolocations. That is doable, I mean, with the platform. So this is again the top attributes behind not buying. And then as you can see here, right, I think why the people are mentioning that they don't want to buy this one. And there are some of those things, of course, the money related thing, what they are talking, and then it is not working. I mean, it's all pretty common, I would say. But if you look into some of those other top ones, right, I think not connect to the phone, and then they are citing it as a big problem. And there are some of them are not have the repair center for Fitbit. I mean, that is also they are citing it as a problem. So I just layered a couple of social media posts over here. As you can see here, I think they are mentioning that one. This one they connect to my phone, and then there are people mentioning the same thing. I mean, that's why, I mean, I don't want to buy this one. And then there are people mentioning that these are some of those examples that I just pulled out of this context, right? And then it is clearly mentioning that one, I want to get it repaired. I mean, no repair center, and then regretting to buy this one, right? And then similar way, they are saying that one, their customer service, right? If you are seeing this one, I think it is having a very negative sentiment for the Fitbit customer service, and then why people are mentioning that, right? And then you will be able to see that one. And similar way, if you're looking into why people are mentioning that they don't want to wear, right? This one is the top attributes behind not wear. So of course, this one is messing up with the workout. So I just pulled a couple of examples for the itchy one. So you can see that itchy is one of the one of the biggest reasons behind that they don't want to wear. And as you can see that one there, some of them are clearly mentioning that. I mean, it's that nickel allergy, and then they should be, I mean, as a brand, you will be able to easily identify these behaviors or the attributes behind any of those customer negative sentiments, and then you should be
it gives you the ability to double click on some of these more on the surface sort of issues, where you can dive deeper and deeper in terms of getting details around certain elements, and then you can use that as a basis to maybe target your products or services to a particular audience that may be underserved based upon the investment model, right? That's kind of an example of bringing it all together, right?
Yeah, that's right. And these insights are really helpful for you to have have a marketing impact, right? So if you wanted to define your marketing content for your customers, I mean, what they like, and you'll be able to use those emotions or the behaviors for some of those clients. And if you wanted to identify the content that your marketing team can really promote, right? And it can be a weakness of one of your competitors or the strength of your brand. And then you'll be able to identify that. And then this will help you when you wanted to define some of your marketing strategies.
So just as a time check, Joby, we got about maybe 5 to 7 minutes left, because I do want to keep enough time for questions at the end, okay?
Yeah. I will just make it quick, and then this one is definitely the last segment. I mean, where you will be discovering the category trends to stay ahead of the curve. And so this is, again, I pulled for the all trends in the wearable tech industry. This one is, I have used the patent data set, and then so that's where you will be able to pull the very latest what is happening in that segment, right? So I have used the criteria like patents that are applied in 2022 with the descriptions of the keywords related to the wearable technology industry. And of course, you will be able to filter this one further with the assignee, or maybe the application date, or the grant date, or the patent status, or maybe the citation count or the classification code. And within the patent data set, you'll be able to get this network map provides the high-level view of R&D areas, right? Analyzing the isolated clusters, and then we can hold out the outliers over here. They can often indicate a new technology area that are interesting to investigate further. So if you look into here, right, and then on here, and you'll be able to see that the communication between the wearable devices as well as the others, I think that comes with the 12%, and then there are 10% of the patents that is filed for the control and instruct the wearables. And then there are a couple of other things as well. And then, but at the same time, there are some of the real interesting ones, like there are patents that is filed for recognition of the text and objects, and then processing image using the wearable devices, right? And then there are some of the cases where patents filed for the smart shoes, and then some of the flexible materials for wearables. And these are all coming up as the trends, or maybe that is the emerging technology that is coming up in the nearby future, because the people are already filed the patents for this one in 2022 in the wearable industry. And then you'll be able to see that one. This is coming very quickly. So this bar chart you can be used to identify the top assignees and then companies investing in the IP in the wearable tech industry, right? So this one comes with a patent bar chart with a 326 patents, and this one will be really useful for your research and development team. It can say that what is the future of your industry based on the specific business details. It can help you to define the prices for your products, or you can even define your acquisition strategies based on that, right? So if you look into some of those smaller categories, right, so you'll be able to see that there is a smart face mask they have filed, and then there is air quality monitoring that is coming in the wearable industry. As I mentioned, there are some of those flexible devices, and then light emitting modules they have put it as filed the patent for the same. And you will be able to see that with the top companies, I mean, Apple as well as the Google, I mean, they are all having this green segment. You'll be able to see that one. These are all mainly for the communication between the wearables and the other interfaces. So you'll be able to see that using this particular graph. Similar way, you will be able to see that, I think these are all the top companies that is having the maximum number of patents applied. So in this case, you will be able to see that out of these 326 patents, And Apple is the top one. Of course, the Qualcomm is also the same way. And then, but Qualcomm got some of them granted. And then if you look into some of these companies, Jiangxi, Zhuangzhou, and they have most of the patents are granted already. And then the company called Honor Device, they have also most of the patents already granted. This one is absolutely, I mean, these are not all the Apple patents, and this one is only specific for the wearable tech industry. And you will be able to see that and then segment this one further. So this will definitely help you to understand that, I think, what is happening in your category. I mean, if you are working in the wearable tech industry, and then you will be able to discover the category trends, and then that will definitely help you to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's the future-looking element that's also critical in this, which I mentioned before, but it's that ability to see the early warning signals that could possibly articulate a competitor's strategy or a business or industry direction that I think is also critically important, especially as you're trying to do product content or product definition.
Yeah. All right, I think that's all. I mean, from a slide perspective, of course, we can look into some of those questions, I think, from some of our participants.
Yeah, Joby, though, this is great. And I think to the audience, I just want to summarize real quickly before we jump into some of the questions. The ability, in today's world, complex data-driven world that's, just gone off the rails in terms of the amount of data out there. The only way I think to be extremely effective is they have to have tools. You have to have automated tools in order to be able to process and decipher the golden nuggets, as I call them, in that mountain of data, so that you can use that as a strategy to position your company appropriately. And the challenging part is trying to do that real time, because the world changes so quickly. And again, the only way to do that is with tools. So I'm a big fan of utilizing automated tools, hopefully with AI and ML type capabilities, to also give you that predictive nature, as well as prescriptive. So it tells you not only what's going to happen, but maybe can offer you some suggestions. So to that point, I think, Joby, we're going to have probably a distribution version of the slide deck that will be made available to all of the participants, which I think would be very helpful to everybody, so they can reference back.
Yeah.
One of the questions came up about I think it was slide 5, single source of truth content. As you know, a lot of organizations have what we like to affectionately call this tribal knowledge, right? Inherent beliefs and knowledge and positions and maybe preconceived notions, I think, of what's happening. And how do you really how do you really manage this single source of truth content within that sort of a tribal knowledge corporate environment?
So in this case, right, you'll be able to, with most of these modern technologies, and then you will be able to bring your own data, and then you will be able to incorporate that as well. So even if that is within your legacy systems, and then, I mean, at the end, it's all data, right? And then you will be able to pull that one. If you think that there is a knowledge, I mean, that is at least documented somewhere, and then that has happened in the past, and then if you can document that, and then if you can, even if that is an unstructured data, still, if it is in any form, right? I mean, not in somebody's head, right? I think that is still, I think there are technologies coming to drill that out. But if it is in some form of documentation, then for sure, you can put that one, I think, using some of those technologies. I mean, you can bring those data, and then you will be able to classify that one. And then we will be able to segment that further, and then pull whatever you wanted to pull it from that. I mean, any of the trends, or maybe even if it is some of the client cases, right? I have seen such cases where there were huge data that was coming from some of the consumers. I mean, like a feedback that came some 10 years before. And we can bring that data and then put it there in the system, and then we will be able to analyze for these years and years of data. And then we will be able to segment that and to see that whether there is an improvement or what happened with that over the time frame. If you wanted to do that, I mean, that is still doable. I mean, it's not a big deal. And even if it is a spreadsheet and you are bringing that data, I mean, it can be doable, I mean, with a couple of clicks. So it's not a big deal at all.
I think the biggest challenges are really to utilize this single source of truth and utilize the data to bring a perspective into a corporate culture that might have some establish preconceived notions about how the business environment might be. I mean, I've run into that many times in my career. I've talked to probably 100 people who have witnessed that to be a real challenge as to how to utilize that data-driven factual information to be the North Star that guides you rather than a culture or a set of executive expectations that might be very different than what this data dictates. So it's that balancing act, I think, is really the challenging in terms of how do you manage the truthfulness. And, I've talked about this before about, using triangulation and not necessarily only relying on one piece of data to articulate your position. I think this sort of tool does that by assessing so many different values, so many different parts of data, that you're able to maybe bring a better argument to the culture of your organization to convince them that the data generated truth is more representative of the real life situation. I think those are some of the big challenges that we've all seen.
Yeah, I agree.
So another question here. As you know, B2C is a very common relationship business model. What about a B2B environment? Can you give some examples of how this methodology could work in a B2B environment?
Oh, same thing can be done, right? So for us, I think when you do the data analysis or when you want to do the competitive strategy, I mean, it can be applied for B2B as well as B2C, right? When it comes to B2B, probably you may need to look for the reviews for the specific category, right? I think I have worked with many of those large software companies, I think, where they make the software products for large other companies, right? And then definitely the users or maybe the actual consumers are the large companies. I mean, not the real end users or maybe any of those end customers as such. But you'll be able to collect those kind of reviews. I mean, if you are looking for some of those sentiments, I mean, those kind of things, you'll be able to pull that one up using the specific reviews, and then you can segregate that, right? What is your source, and then that is coming. I mean, where is it coming from? So any business, if you search anywhere, right? I think somewhere it is having the data stored there. I think somebody is mentioning about that. And then that way you will be able to pull that. In addition to that, I think with some of those B2B model where the companies, they collect that feedback or they collect that data, I mean, using their own methods. And you will be able to pull that one as you can bring that data and then you can put it there and then you'll be able to figure it out. Same way, like in case if you just wanted to pull some of this data, I mean, which is not really available in public, and then but that is really available within the company, I mean, as a private data, you can bring that one to some of those tools, and then you can model that one, you can segment that, you will be able to pull the sentiments or the emotions or any of those things behind, I mean, whatever the feedback, what you are getting from that. Very good.
So as you know, B2B examples, I come from a large B2B environment, also B2C in some context, but yeah, there's a lot of overlap, I guess, in terms of tools and methodologies that you can use both from a B2C and a B2B that could work, especially channel partners or resellers or things of that nature. So a lot of the tools are very much useful in that environment. I think that's all the questions we had that were recorded here, but I'm assuming the fact that you're okay with people reaching out to you on LinkedIn can certainly ask additional questions of you in that context. I also share that to myself for anybody on the line here who would like to reach out to me for any questions or comments, by all means. So in closing, Joby, what would you say are kind of like the top 3 takeaways that you'd want the audience to walk away from? Very brief, top 3 takeaways. What would those be?
I would say that one thing is it should be continuous, right? I think, as I mentioned, I mean, even if you are discovering something, I mean, that should be continuous. You shouldn't stop there. And then the same way, you should be doing the continuous monitoring as well. I think both the things are very important. I mean, once you discover that, I think you should be monitoring that when you wanted to do this competitive analysis. And the third thing is, for sure, right? Any data that you are getting, right? And then you are struggling, and then you are thinking that, okay, you have a completely unstructured data, and you think that I cannot pull that one. And I mean, it's a vast majority of data. You can, I mean, with the new latest technologies, I mean, machine learning as well as the artificial intelligence, especially with the modern technologies. And then you will be able to pull that data and then you can make it as a useful one. I mean, with a couple of clicks, I would say that.
Yep.
I think so. Any data, I mean, it's definitely data is a gold mine, right? And then as we say, so you will be able to figure it out. I think any of those insights, and you will be thinking that, okay, last time, I mean, when we have done some of those strategies, and then that is several years before, I mean, that is somewhere stored, and then we cannot pull that one, but still that is the data, and you will be able to make use of that, and then definitely you will be able to pull some of the insights, I think, or if you wanted to do some comparison for year over year, or maybe quarter over quarter, you will be able to do those things.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay. Then I'm going to ask if we can conclude this presentation. I want to again thank Joby Jacob for your time and effort. Excellent done, excellently performed. NetBase Quid is the company. And again, reach out to Joby or myself if any of you have any questions or comments and any sort of follow-up that you'd like to have. Again, I thank you, Joby, for your time and effort. And I thank the audience for your taking your time out of your day to attend this webinar. Thank you.
Yep.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.